Well, North Korea's involvement in Ukraine has drawn China into a bit of a delicate act. Is Beijing in a tough spot now with North Korea's deployment in Russia's war in Ukraine? Well, to find out more and to decipher the exact details, we have with us China expert, Professor Avinash Godbole. Thank you so much, sir, for making time for us on NDTV.
Thank you for having me.
Professor, how is China reacting to the increasing cooperation between North Korea and Russia? Does this shift in North Korean alignment actually signal any potential changes in China's foreign policy or strategic interests?
I think China will not like the recent development because it will put a lot of pressure back on China. First of all, it shows that there's an erosion of influence that China has had over Pyongyang for stability of the region and for other places. There's a possibility that the North Korean troops that are fighting on behalf of Russia are fighting along the Russian troops, and these are specialized units that are supposed to take back some of the provinces taken over by the Ukrainian forces. So their presence might be time bound. But again, for China, it creates headaches. It's not good for them. It shows erosion of China's influence in the region. It will mean there'll be more scrutiny of Chinese actions. There'll be more expectations from them. And what has helped China over the last 3 years was that Russia had become the bad boy in the world. And then with this recent news, the focus will shift back to China. There'll be more expectations from China to act tough on North Korea, and to also, it will put in question China's neutrality position in the overall crisis. So far, they have been criticizing Ukraine subtly that the crisis is because of the Western influence, and the world should remain neutral. But China no longer can take that stance as the things stand today.
In fact, many actually argue that the entry of North Korean troops risks a dangerous escalation in the Russia-Ukraine war, while also putting Beijing in a bit of a tight spot. But how could this new phase of North Korean-Russian cooperation then influence the stability of the broader East Asian region, sir?
It will destabilize East Asia because there's news that there are 10,000 soldiers already in Russia, about 6,000 closer to the active duty. And there's a possibility that the numbers will increase by another 2,000 by end of November, and then one more 1,000, so total 13,000 by end of December. So there'll be more pressure on China. There'll be more satellite as well as ground presence. We might see maneuvering of the American naval ships closer to the North Korean borders, the North Korean waters, as well as there's an intent by South Korea to send weapons to Ukraine now. That has been expressed over the last 48 hours. So there's more active participation by other countries can take this situation to the not just a bilateral war, but to a global war, which it was under the covers so far. But openly, it will become a more multi-party war. And that is not good for China. China's economy is not in good shape. They want stability. They also have to deal with Trump now, so it makes things certainly difficult for China.
Indeed. In fact, it can also raise serious questions as far as regional stability is concerned. Professor Godbole, Mao had once upon a time reportedly said that without the lips, the teeth are cold when describing China's relationship with North Korea. How does this historical analogy still shape China's strategic approach to North Korea today?
China has since then become pragmatic. It is not exporting communism to other countries, but then they still want to maintain North Korea the way it is. They would still like to avoid the American intervention in the region. China has maintained a delicate balance of its relations between Japan and South Korea. They have reinstated the trilateral dialogue, which had gone down before COVID only recently. So China would want to maintain that stability in the North Korea. And the more pressure there is on North Korea on economic terms, there's more pressure on China to act, to provide aid, to consider the prospect of refugees on its border as well, if the North Korean regime were to collapse because of any other consequent actions by the Americans later. So they want stability in the region and in the North Korea as well from their selfish reasons as well. Not so much because of ideological perspective anymore, but from their selfish strategic reasons at this point, I would think dictates more.